Hey, hey, this is Kyle from Dad Smoking Cigars. Yeah, you know who I am, right? Kyle, Dad Smoking. You know. Anyway, yeah, I was just calling because I'm really interested in your brand, man. It looks really good. I heard a lot of good things about it. And, I have this great YouTube channel where I review cigars and stuff, and I really think that I could plug your brand really good. Just wondering if you could send over some cigars and I could just go ahead and try them. I have to pay? How much? Oh. I don't know if you know this, but I mean, I don't really pay for stuff. I just get it. Hello? This must be a bad signal. Well, I hope you guys found that little bit entertaining. Obviously, it was an extreme and exaggerated form of what I'm about to discuss in this week's video. Once again, we are continuing in the series of why cigar influencers are assholes, and I think I performed the whole asshole stereotype or shtick pretty well in that opening bit. One point I touched on in the last video, and if you haven't seen it yet, please go check it out. I did touch on the whole idea that sometimes some of those of us who are cigar personalities or influencers, you guys know I don't really care for that word, they like to see how much free stuff they can get. And don't get me wrong, obviously it is fun and it's cool and it's exciting to get free stuff. Whenever you get handed something free, something that you want, that's desirable, something that you normally might have to pay a bit more for, it's always fun and exciting. It's always great. It makes you feel good and it makes you, really enjoy yourself. And sometimes at events and things like that, you can get some free samples of cigars. Sometimes if you are lucky and fortunate enough, you might have a manufacturer send you over something. But I do believe that is the exception, not the rule. And as fun as it is to get some free samples, free cigars, free swag, free this, that, and the other, the important thing is to not expect it, and more importantly, not to feel entitled to it. So this week we're going to explore a little bit the mentality of those who might feel like that they're entitled or think they deserve free stuff, when the reality is none of us do. We're just lucky and fortunate if we get it. In any case, cue that intro. What's up, everybody? You are watching Dad Smoking Cigars, sponsored by StogieLives.com, Cigar social media, and of course, Casa Cuevas cigars, from our casa to yours. Thank you so much for joining me for another video. And once again, I hope you enjoyed my performance in the first part of the video. That was actually a lot of fun to do, kind of throwing out a caricatured version of the type of person I'm about to talk about, as we continue on with the Why Cigar Influencers Are Assholes series. Now, to clarify, maybe some of you don't know this already, you haven't watched the first couple of videos, and you're wondering, okay, you look like a cigar influencer. Do you really think that all cigar influencers are assholes? No, I don't. It is just, it's kind of a clickbaity title that feeds into a discussion that I have been having, a dialogue, if you will, with all of you who have been watching my videos. And the first video was kind of just the framework. The second video, we talked about how not to, stir up drama or strife within the community, avoiding community fracture, especially within the various cliques and clubs and social groupings in the cigar community. This community exists for us to hang out, have fun, enjoy each other's company, while obviously smoking a good cigar. And unfortunately, that can be lost on some people, and there are still people within, just like any community, who like to stir shit up and cause drama. That was just a little recap of last week, but this week we're going to talk about a very specific type of person, and It's going to be a little cringeworthy, like some of these other scenarios I've described, just because people like this do exist, not just in the cigar community, but all over the, like, quote, influencer community, because there's influencers everywhere, and yeah, all of them have different agendas and different angles, and I'm gonna go ahead and tell you a little bit about mine. Now, I said it before in the last video, again, keep going back to the last video, but there's a couple of points that definitely feed into this week's video. I don't believe, well, personally, I believe that if you become an influencer, it should be something that happens organically, naturally. Like, you just start posting stuff online, whether, you know, your various socials, and I think TikTok is one of the biggest ones now that you can actually become quite noticed and quite big. Same thing with YouTube, or just anywhere else you have exposure to the world at large. Maybe you have a special passion or a hobby or just some niche thing that you yourself enjoy, or you just like making goofy, silly, funny videos. You dance, you sing, you lip sync, you do all this kind of fun stuff on social media, and eventually you start blowing up. You start getting a lot of followers, and so you realize there's potential in that, and so you keep doing what you're doing, but you figure out a way to eventually maybe monetize it. Maybe you get some sponsorship deals. Maybe you get offers to, you know, do various things just because you're starting to gain popularity, and with that popularity is the potential for monetization. Now, I'm very much a big believer if you find something you love, something you enjoy, something that you're passionate about, and you can make a career out of it, or there's career potential, you should get paid for it. And if you work your way up to that point, I think that is fantastic. Even if what you're doing is just having a blast on social media, online, for various people to watch, for their entertainment, I think it's an awesome thing. And it definitely has changed the career paths of many of people who maybe didn't think that wasn't their initial objective, and they ended up in that position. Now, as far as my story goes, while definitely not on such a grand scale as some other people online, the long and short of it is this: I started having a growing passion for cigars. I was trying more and more different cigars, you know, developing my palate. I started smoking cigars when I was 19 years old, back when the legal age to smoke tobacco in California was 18, and so I was able to smoke cigars, but I did so very sparingly, very rarely. Initially, I wanted to smoke all the time, but purchasing cigars, especially as a 19-year-old, even in the early aughts, the early 2000s, it's still an expensive habit, so I didn't always have money to buy cigars. That, and I was living at home with my mom, and at the time, she wasn't really such a fan. Now she'll sit down and have a cigar with me, so go figure. But for years and years, I might have a cigar a few times a year. At most, I might have a cigar every couple of months as I started going into my late 20s and early 30s. And then my passion kept growing. I kept having cigars with my dad whenever I'd visit him. He'd always offer. I'd usually say yes. And so I was trying more and more cigars, different cigars, and I was developing more of a taste for them as opposed to just smoking them because I could. Fast forward to 2018, I was my passion was peaking, and I really wanted to do something on social media, maybe eventually do a YouTube channel, and it happened, obviously. But I wanted to start with social media, and I just wanted to kind of share which cigars I was smoking, and I wanted to see what other cigars people were smoking. And after having cigars on my patio with a friend of mine, Dad Smoking Cigars was born. Many of you know who that is. That is Cigar Show Tim Long. Him and I used to do Dad Smoking Cigars together, and eventually, we would diverge and we would just do our own thing. But at the time, it was me and him, and we both wanted the same thing. So Dad Smoking Cigars was created, and initially, again, it was just sharing passion for cigars. As we posted more often, we began to get noticed more and things like that, and we kind of put it out there just to see what would happen, saying if you guys have a product or anything that you would like us to check out or review, please let us know, shoot us a message, etc., etc. There was actually one or two people who commented like, you guys just want to get free shit. I'm like, well, we're not asking for free shit, but point us in a direction and we'll go that route, whether we have to buy it or if you want to send it to us of your own volition. We're leaving it wide open, so just tell us where we can find this product or this cigar or whatever, and we'll check it out and we'll review it and all that kind of stuff. We'll do it in a live stream. And yeah, I mean, for a while it wasn't happening, and that was fine. We weren't expecting it. We didn't think that it was like a given. And then one day we got a message from a guy who unfortunately no longer produces cigars, which makes me very sad still to this day. A guy named Nicholas J. His cigars were Cigars by Nicholas J. And he had 2 cigars. One was kind of like a Maduro. The other was like a Connecticut. There's a whole story behind that. And eventually, you know, one day I'll retell that story. But long story short, he decided to send us a box of his cigars. And those were the first cigars we were ever sent by the manufacturer with just out of the kindness and generosity of their own heart, because they wanted to know our thoughts on their product. Without droning on and on into a long history of Dad Smoking Cigars, over time there were brands and just people who had a passion for cigars who would send us cigar samples. And, you know, that still continues on to this day. Myself and Tim and a number of other cigar, you know, content creators and personalities and whatnot. Obviously, I'm sponsored by Casa Cuevas Cigars, and periodically I will get sent some samples from them, and I will get to enjoy them, and I get to enjoy those with friends and family, and occasionally I'll do giveaways and things like that. And there are other manufacturers, other brands who have been kind and generous enough to gift me cigars for me to try and review. Now, it's not merely just me getting free stuff. That's not even really what it is as a whole. I am being offered an opportunity to try a brand, promote that brand, review them, giving my honest thoughts on them, and at the same time, I am doing advertising for that brand. So it is a win-win. I am promoting and advertising that brand. They are sending me some of their product out of the kindness of their heart. I try to buy my cigars as often as I can. Thankfully, I don't go through them too quickly because I only smoke maybe 3 to 4 times a week, just given my schedule. I don't always have time to smoke cigars, because if I had more time to smoke cigars, I'd probably go through them faster, so it works out pretty well. I still get occasional offers for collaboration and things like that. I've built some really great relationships with manufacturers, and yes, on occasion, I will get some free samples or product to try, review, or just they'll send it because they feel like sending it. Now, is this the rule or is this the exception? Definitely the exception. It is not something where, you know, every single day or even like on a regular basis I get this kind of stuff happening to me on a, you know, again, regular basis. It's not something that happens to me all the time. I have been fortunate that a lot of my collection of cigars were from my sponsor or from other cigars that I've collected over time. Some of them were cigars I bought ages ago and haven't smoked yet. But for the most part, no, definitely not. Definitely not the rule, absolutely the exception. It is a wonderful, wonderful blessing and stroke of fortune that these manufacturers, these companies, these people have been kind enough to send me some free samples and things like that, so long as I keep my end and talk about the product, review it, give my honest opinion about it, and plug it so that other people will, you know, see the product and maybe want to try it. I mean, that is my job as the personality, the influencer, to show people products that maybe they've never tried and plug them and get them interested in them. And truth be told, it's a hell of a lot of fun. I love trying new cigars as it is, and I'm grateful when companies invest in me, trust me enough to give my honest opinion. To all of you guys who watch the channel, who look at my socials and things like that, it is a blast for me to do that because I love telling people about new cigars that I've tried and cigars I think they should try. And it's fun for me to get them to pay attention to those smaller brands, lesser known brands. But again, this happened organically. It wasn't something that I was ever really trying to push for. It wasn't my ambition. It wasn't my goal. It was something that ended up happening over time. And again, stroke of wonderful fortune, blessing, and that people wanted to invest in me and send me their product. I never take that for granted because I know one day it could just stop. So I always keep that in mind because I know I'm not entitled to this stuff. This is not stuff that I should just get. I'm not some big shot somebody who should be given free stuff or, sent stuff in the mail all the time. I'm grateful when it happens, but it doesn't happen all the time. Majority of the time, it doesn't happen. Allow me to clarify that. Majority of the time, it does not happen. Now, this is in contrast. This is in contrast to maybe someone who consumes cigar content on YouTube or social media, sees us smoking these various cigars that we enjoy and things like that, and we maybe do unboxing videos or we do our reviews and we say things along the lines of like, I was fortunate enough to get sent these by this manufacturer, this person, or my sponsor sent me these, or whatever the case is. And it sounds pretty awesome. And again, when it happens, it is awesome. But it is definitely the exception, not the rule. But this person who's looking at the cigar social media and cigar channels may not know that. So maybe the idea of starting cigar social media, cigar channel, whatever, with the goal of getting free stuff pops into their head. Now, is it like this evil, horrible thought, the idea of wanting to possibly get free merchandise? No. Most of us, if we were honest, would love certain things for free. Because free stuff is always awesome. We love free stuff. But if you are getting into this, niche community, a corner of the cigar community who likes to create cigar content, who likes to, post about cigars and all of that kind of stuff, if your goal is to get involved in that simply to potentially cash in on getting free things, yeah, that's not really cool, to be honest. Again, if you're doing it because you love cigars, which is the reason why you should be doing this, if you want to do this, your love and passion for cigars should absolutely just precede anything else. It shouldn't be because, I don't know, again, you want to cash in on some kind of benefit or perk or whatever it is, just kind of like walking onto the scene and be like, hey, where's my free shit? It's it just doesn't look good. And if that is your reason for getting into this, then I would strongly recommend that you don't. You see it everywhere in social media, especially like younger people who want to become an influencer, so that way I can do really cool stuff and get really cool stuff and maybe get sponsored and get free things and all that kind of stuff. And it happens all the time. And there are people who think they're going to be the next viral sensation, and maybe they are, but the whole goal was to become famous and to get stuff thrown at you, make that money or whatever it is. Their motivations were purely material, as opposed to, I'm just having a good time on social media and it happened to turn into a money-making opportunity. Those are two completely different things. I'm not saying it's just going to fall into your lap, but at the same time, if you are honest and you are real and you are genuine, and people can tell, by the way, and you were just doing your thing and having a good time and having fun, saying, I just picked up this new cigar, I've never tried it before, I'm going to share my thoughts with you guys, what do you guys think, have you had it, and things like that, or whatever, commenting on other people's cigar posts, posting another video on YouTube. Honestly, the videos on YouTube I feel like I have the most fun watching are kind of the more spontaneous or extemporaneous, or other big words that basically mean kind of off the cuff, seat of the pants type videos, where it's not, maybe they have a nice camera and they have nice audio equipment. I mean, I'm grateful to have what I have and be able to use it the way that I do, but honestly, there's no shame in starting a cigar channel with just your phone and your back patio or your little tiny patio at your apartment or whatever the case is, and you just sit out there, smoke a cigar, and you're like, okay, I'm smoking this new thing that I've never tried before, and I thought I'd just share my thoughts with you guys of what I think and how I like it, whether it's good or bad and things like that. And you're just chilling and talking. You're keeping it lively. Try not to drone on and on. That's something I have to work on, and that's what editing's for. But you don't need all this fancy stuff. You get started simply, humbly, and you do it for the love of the leaf and your passion and your interest and your and just what you've learned and stuff like that, and you're real and genuine. You never know. Certain things might come your way that you weren't expecting, and it might be, again, being the key phrase, that manufacturers get in touch with you. It will tend to be smaller brands, but those are some of the best brands around, honestly. They will get in touch with you and say, hey, I would like to send you a sample of what we have, and maybe you could give us your honest thoughts about it. And that's pretty cool when that happens. It really is a privilege. It's a privilege that you should never take for granted, and if you happen to be lucky and fortunate enough to have it happen to you. So I guess my best advice to you is don't expect it. Don't just expect it to happen. Don't expect to get that email, that message, that text or whatever that says, hey, we'd like to send you some product. It should be in the mail in X amount of days. Don't expect it. Don't expect it to happen, so that way when it does happen, it's a very nice and pleasant surprise, and it can be an awesome experience, and you get to try new cigars and tell people about the new cigars you've tried. And it's a win-win for everybody, because the manufacturer gets some advertising from you that you provide for them, and they provide you the product that you are advertising, and other people learn about a new cigar they may have never heard of before. So you may be the first person to tell your group of influence that you're influencing about this new cigar that you're smoking, and then they're going to rush out and buy it. So win for everyone. All that being said, I will say this. There's also absolutely nothing wrong with reaching out to manufacturers and talking with them and seeing if you can come to some sort of collaboration or agreement. Maybe you seek out a potential sponsorship with a brand that you've tried. You let them know, I really like your product. I was wondering if you might be willing to do like a sponsorship for like an episode of my show, or like a short-term or long-term sponsorship and things like that. You're networking when you do that. There's nothing wrong, and as long as you approach them politely and you do it in a way that is, not like, hey man, like your stuff, could you send me some free things? Don't do that. But, get in touch with them. Let them know how much you enjoy their product, how much you appreciate what they produce, and talk with them. See what you can, come to an arrangement on or agreement on. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. People do it all the time. As long as you're approaching people with the due respect that you should be giving them, and they understand that you love their product and things like that, they might be willing to consider a sponsorship or some sort of deal or arrangement where they provide you with their product. You continue to smoke it, review it, tell people about it. It's a win for them, because that's the beauty of social networking and people who do have a degree of influence. Free advertising, and really they have to pay in terms of like monetary or material value is their product. They are willing to eat the cost of a little bit of product, so that way you can plug and promote their product, and then other people are going to go and buy their product, and they get a return on that. I remember seeing a bit from comedian Tom Segura on one of his Netflix specials where he's talking about how he did a show, and some Nike executives or just people who work for Nike came to him and said, hey, how about you come to our warehouse and you can shop in the employee store 50% off of everything. And he basically said, well, I'm going to come there and I'm going to buy everything in your store. So he was excited, but then apparently his name got flagged because he's a person of influence. And so he had to contact their entertainment division, calls them up and said, I'm Tom Segura. And they're like, okay. And he said, I'm a person of influence. That's why his name was flagged. I'm like, okay. He's like, so how about some free shit? And they said, we'll get back to you. They never did. And he kind of went a certain direction of basically slamming Nike in his stand-up bit. And that leads me into another point, that sometimes you might get contacted by certain brands or manufacturers saying they'd like to collaborate with you, and nothing ever comes of it. That might happen. I think that's important to note. That might happen. Don't take it personally if nothing comes of it. Don't take it personally if that person doesn't get back in touch with you. Everybody gets busy. Sometimes they might be in the middle of a to-do list and they're trying to check everything off, and they got in touch with you and they forgot to do the follow-up of that part of their list or whatever. And my advice is, if that happens, try not to bug them. Maybe send them one message just like, hey, just touching base, wanted to see if you were still interested in collaborating, and leave it at that. It's happened a couple times before. It's honestly not a big deal. It's not something that I ever lament and just thinking, yeah, damn it, assholes. They said they were going to collaborate with me and they never got in touch with me. Stuff happens. Other opportunities will present themselves. So just to sum up, don't get into cigar influencing or creating content and things like that to get stuff, to get free stuff more specifically. I can honestly tell you that in a relatively short period of time, you might be able to do it for a while, and then over time stuff dries up, and you really need to make sure, I need to make sure, you're buying your own stuff and you're buying your own cigars and supporting the brands that you say you enjoy and like. It's important. You may not always be able to do it, but you got to try and do it as often as possible, and don't expect anyone, no matter who, to provide you with your cigar collection. It's just not realistic. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate all of you, as always. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. Be sure to like this video. It helps my channel become more visible for other cigar enthusiasts to find. And also be sure to drop a comment. I always appreciate it when you guys start a dialogue in the comments, and I always reply to every single comment. So anyways, guys, thank you again for joining me. I hope you're all doing well and staying smoky. But yeah, guys, take care of yourselves, and as always, I will catch you in the next one.